Welcome to Module 14. This is the conclusion of the course. By now, you've already hopefully learned most of what you'll be learning this semester in World Regional Geography, but I just want to go over a few of the overarching main concepts in the course so that you can kind of look back at them in hindsight, having gone from region to region throughout the world. First, a little bit of housekeeping. You've gotten an email already from the university about filling out course evaluations, SEIs. This used to be done, of course, in person in class, but with all classes, including this online class, they're accessed through your Buckeye link. So whatever your opinion is of the course, I really encourage you to fill out the SEI. Believe it or not, your opinion is actually very important. First of all, to me, to improve the way the course runs and to improve as a teacher, to the geography department, and also to the university. So your feedback is important. It has consequences, and it's very valuable. So really, the more of you who take a few moments to share your thoughts about what worked, what didn't work, would be really, really appreciated. All right, here's what I hope that you've learned from the course. So first of all, I hope that you've picked up a new language, a new vocabulary to speak about, write about, and think about events going on in the world. Furthermore, I hope that you have understanding now, if not in depth, then at least a synoptic understanding of key concepts, including those related to physical geography, uneven development, population, and globalization. And I hope that you also have a little bit clearer of a picture of the world regions that we've virtually traveled around to over the course of the semester. And besides those key concepts, I hope that when it comes to applying that knowledge, you're able to incorporate it into your critical thinking, also spatial thinking. So thinking about, first of all, different kinds of space, but also just a very basic idea of where things happening in the world mattering. And finally, communication skills. And this goes back to the previous slide talking about the different vocabulary. I hope that in addition to being able to think about this stuff more clearly, you're able to communicate your ideas more clearly with others. You'll remember that this course fulfills some general education requirements, and that includes a goal of having you have improved understanding of yourself and others as part of your community and the world. Really, all this means is having a clearer idea of where you fit into the big picture, socially, environmentally, economically, and in history. We're small parts in a very, very big, very complicated machine, and I hope that this course has given you both a better, clearer view of that machine and improved tools for thinking about it, for speaking about it, and for writing about it. And to be honest, if you get nothing else out of the course, even the things I just mentioned, the most valuable habit that you could possibly get, that you can incorporate into your everyday life, would be keeping on top of current events and thinking about them in relation to one another. So if all you do is read the news a little bit more often, check out the New York Times, the Washington Post, NPR. If you want to be really adventurous, read other news sources from around the world, the South China Morning Post, Le Monde, the BBC, to get as many perspectives as possible about what's going on. If you just do that every day for a couple of minutes, you'll find yourself having a much clearer idea of your place in the world, and it's it's maybe a slightly healthier addiction to have than Facebook or BuzzFeed, although those can be fine as well. They're definitely not mutually exclusive. All right, to review some of the key concepts that I just mentioned. Globalization. This is something that you've seen this throughout every chapter of the book. We've covered it in relation to every world region. And so now, kind of looking back, I hope that you'll see these bigger trends about globalization that have emerged. So this includes trade as a key factor of globalization. I hope that you'll be able to distinguish, and this is especially important for your commodity chain projects, I hope you'll be able to distinguish between sites of production and sites of consumption and the international division of labor. So what stage of production is going on where generally in the world? And remember that this relates to concepts about the global core, where advanced manufacturing, financial products research, and the like is going on, and the global periphery, where extraction of raw materials is going on. And international trade is big, big business. People from around the world are investing trillions of dollars every year. So trade is a big deal, definitely something to pay attention to. So in addition to the movement of goods and of wealth, there's also the movement of people. And so I hope that you're able to distinguish now and put into context in different regions concepts including voluntary migration, forced migration, human trafficking, and then also how the flows of people are also related to the flows of money through processes including remittances. And finally, I hope you recognize that globalization has globalized cities throughout the world. So on a very superficial level, as I've mentioned a few times this semester, that means being able to find a Starbucks and a McDonald's, whether you're in Beijing, New York, Sao Paulo, wherever. But on a deeper level, this is tied into a broad spatial process that drives urbanization and then concentrates wealth, global business headquarters in particular places, and that these big global metropolises have become hubs of business, hubs of exchange of money, ideas, and culture all at the same time. And, ironically, even as the world has globalized, it's also glocalized, so that, as I mentioned, you can find some of the same brand names, some of the same experiences in almost any global metropolitan city in the world, no matter what country, no matter what continent. And as the world as a whole has gotten more connected, regions, likewise, have gotten more connected within themselves. These have become more and more important on the global stage as individual countries, for instance, might not be able to organize sufficiently to be globally competitive. And I don't mean necessarily militarily. I mean also economically and in terms of soft power. But regions have found it very important to cooperate among themselves. And as we've seen, even just during the course this semester, we've seen this increase with things, for instance, like the Trans-Pacific Trade Agreement. And even in the midst of all of this globalization and increased cooperation within and between regions, we were still witnessing uneven development, and if anything, an increase in the unevenness. So we're seeing more inequality both within countries and between countries, which put very simply, and this shouldn't be a surprise to you if you've been following along with the readings and the lectures all semester, it it means that the global rich are, for the most part, getting richer, and the global poor, in relative terms, are getting more poor, even as absolute poverty may have seen decreases in recent years. Right, there might be some good news in terms of absolute numbers, but in relative numbers, inequality, unevenness are on the rise. And remember that this relates to concepts of development and underdevelopment, and again, as I mentioned earlier, the core and periphery and the global division of labor. And, these are abstract things, but it really helps to remember that right now, wherever you are, as you are listening to this, there are billions of people who are living in very, very different conditions. Some of them not very far from us, but some of them on the opposite side of the world. But anyhow, it's happening right now. Someone is doing their laundry in that river on the right. Probably right now, unless you're watching this in the middle of the day, in which case they're probably asleep. But that's beside the point. Okay, and remember that, here's a visual manifestation of that inequality that we're talking about. So this is showing international purchasing power per capita. And again, we see Western Europe has a lot per person, the United States, Japan, and then East Asia, a little bit less, South Asia, very little, South America, not very much, and Sub-Saharan Africa, barely anything at all. So we looked at the World Development Report, which again emphasized that there's more economic integration, higher densities of economic activity, for instance, as seen in the growth of cities. Distance is becoming both shorter and less important. So sites of production are getting closer to sites of consumption, and also transport means that both the actual distance from consumer to from factory to consumer are getting shorter, but also the time it takes to get there, and the level of economic integration is greater. As world markets have integrated more and more countries. However, as I hope you're discovering through your commodity chain projects, any given product is, no matter how simple, is within a few degrees of separation connected back to faraway places, to the global economy, and to global supply chains. And there's an argument that this sort of collapse of distance, this thinning of borders, isn't actually necessarily overcoming regional economic disparity. So looking somewhere like Western Europe, where unemployment is very, very high in a few countries, think back to the European debt crisis unit, while other countries such as Germany and France are doing quite well. All right, so thank you for your effort in this course this semester. I enjoyed meeting all of you who were able to come at some point to office hours, and even if you were just able to communicate by email, it's really always a pleasure to get to be in touch with you guys on a person-to-person basis. So I hope that this course has been enjoyable, or at the very least educational, hopefully more even than you realize. I hope that these lessons sort of stick with you, and that you'll find moving forward in your other classes as you're reading the news that you have a more sophisticated tool set for understanding the world, for thinking about it, and for articulating your views about it. Again, if you have any questions at all about the commodity chain project or about anything else, please don't hesitate to get in touch with me. I really look forward to grading them from the outlines. It seems like a lot of groups have chosen some really interesting stuff. And please also don't forget to fill out your SEIs. You'll see some email reminders from me about that. Remember, it just takes you a couple minutes. It's very important and very useful to me, to the department, and to the university to see if we're doing a good job and to find out how we could be doing it even better. All right, thank you for listening.